and today we are back on our journey into the world of mental health and wellness. I'm excited to welcome our guest for today's episode, Ms. Rashi Laskari. With a decade of experience in the field of mental health care, Ms. Laskari brings a wealth of knowledge and insight into our conversation. Ms. Laskari is a counseling psychologist who has dedicated her career to supporting individuals across all age groups. Her journey in mental health began with a significant focus on young minds. She spent 5 years as a school psychologist in various leading institutions, honing her expertise in working with children and adolescents. Today, Ms. Laskari wears multiple hats in her practice. She serves as an individual and family therapist and is trained in relationship and marriage counseling. This diverse skill set allows her to approach mental health care from various angles, catering to clients of all ages. What sets Ms. Laskari apart is her eclectic approach to psychological counseling and therapy. She doesn't believe in one-size-fits-all solution, instead drawing from various therapeutic methods to provide personalized care to each of her clients. Ms. Laskari, thank you for joining us on the Therapy Diaries. We're looking forward to tapping into your extensive experience and learning more about your approach to mental health care. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Ashna, for having me over. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. As an individual relationship and family therapist, I work in direction of empowering individuals. In fact, as a center at Inner Light, we work in the direction of empowering individuals towards learning skills, ways to not just navigate through life and relationships and emotions, but actually thrive within it. So over the last 13 years, there are many things that I've learned in the journey, and I'm really excited to bring this conversation, hopefully to share some of my learnings and have some interesting takeaways for all the listeners.
Thank you. So, in the age of dating apps and social media, the concept of micro-cheating has emerged. Can you explain this phenomena?
See, over the last so many years, digital technology has kind of had a profound impact on how relationships function. I think the way that partners communicate with each other, the way that they connect with each other, the way that they even define their relationships has really evolved as a result of everything with the digital media, social media, and so on. Micro cheating, when you say that, it's basically how our attention is kind of getting divided in different directions. Very simply put, social media has made it very easy for us to stay in touch, right? Staying in touch or staying connected has possibly become much easier than before. But these interactions are very superficial.
Correct.
So if I may put it like that, your social engagement has increased, but the rise of social engagement has led to an emotional disengagement.
And so where is the cheating part in this?
Because when I am emotionally disengaged from my partner or from my relationships, I'm not able to give it my all, and I'm getting distracted by a lot of things that are out there. Cheating part comes in terms of my attention span, right? Because I'm not fully there. I'm not fully able to be there for my partner. I'm not fully able to be there for my relationships.
We're always distracted.
You're always distracted. So cheating in a literal sense is usually seen in the context of like cheating with another person, but I think what is being referred to here is cheating in the sense of my attention not fully being there for my partner. Also, there's so much access, right, to talking to people. There's so much ease of access to talking to newer people. So there's the lines have kind of grayed a little bit, right, of how much is okay, how much is not okay. Social media is throwing in your face a lot of false portrayal of very curated relationship goals and things like that, and that is kind of intruding into people's trust factors. It's making them feel insecure.
Can you give us an example of how micro-cheating is happening and we're not even realizing it?
So take a simple example, right? Two people are out for dinner or are out for a walk, for example, but there's a lot of distraction with notifications popping up on the phone. There is always these things that they want to kind of get done with work responsibilities, with social media interaction with friends or other people. So you're not fully able to be there. So physically you're there with your partner, but emotionally you're absent. And that is having an impact. That's a digital technology sort of impact on modern relationships.
Correct.
Because you're physically present but you're emotionally absent. So that leads to insecurity in the relationships, and that is the part of cheating, right? It's not cheating in the literal sense of it,
Yeah.
but what you define as possibly micro cheating. Yeah,
Micro-cheating.
new terms.
So, how do you advise that couples maintain intimacy and connection in an increasingly busy, tech-driven world?
The one go-to word for me would be intention, right? I think it all starts and ends with the intention to want to make it happen. I often use this in context to explain this concept to my clients, which is to say that micro dose of connection, right? Micro connections throughout your day. Everybody is having a busy life, everybody is in a fast-paced routine, but to be able to take the effort to, let's say, have a morning ritual. If a couple decides to have a morning coffee ritual or a morning breakfast ritual where 15 minutes, it's just 15 minutes, right, of undivided attention, conversations, it's like a way of checking in with your partner to emotionally anchor yourself for the day. So smaller things that you can bring into your day-to-day routine, sending a message to your partner, being concerned or invested in something that's happening with their routine, smaller things that we can do as part. So it doesn't have to be big, grand gestures. Going for a walk with your partner or holding their hand or doing anything to emotionally connect with them is no grand gesture.
Correct.
But it's in the smaller things that
Yeah,
you do.
it is.
So it's the intention to kind of make that happen, to ensure that the emotional bond maintains itself in spite of everything else. And I think needless, I can't emphasize on this enough, is also to have some ground rules in terms of tech-free zones or tech-free times. If you're, let's say, out with family, you're at the dinner table, you're ensuring that you're away from your devices. A lot of couples have recognized that the pattern of bringing the phones into the bedroom, both partners are kind of scrolling through their feeds, few minutes leads to few hours, and then you're just going to turn around and go to sleep.
Because you're tired from...
Yeah, because you're tired. The exposure of the phone light, everything your
also,
day.
the tons of information that you're taking in, your brain is going to process that.
Right. So the time that you could connect with your partner is lost because of a device that is in your hand. While
And in the end, this device won't be of use, only your relationship will be of use, right?
Absolutely. And I'm not saying don't be on the device, right? It's absolutely okay. You're going to want to catch up with the world and read the news and do everything else. But there has to be defined time in the day, which is your tech-free time to actually be able to connect with your partner so that you're able to maintain the emotional connectedness between the two. That actually becomes the anchor to facing everything else that is happening in our fast-paced life, right? Because otherwise it all starts to feel very hollow.
How many years have you been married?
I've been married now 9 years.
And do you have any children?
Yes, I do.
So do you follow a routine where you have tech-free time with them?
We do. So meal times are absolutely no devices per se. We do also spend time playing or even especially if you have a child, right? As a family, even if your spouse and you are, let's say, engaging with the child, that is time that the two of you are also engaging, right?
Correct.
Because you're
You are together at the same time.
You're
Yeah.
building experiences as a couple. That's how your relationship has evolved, right? From being, let's say, dating partners to married partners to now parents
Absolutely.
going through a different journey. So being mindfully present and having the intention to create those little moments in your day is the only way you can, navigate through this tech overload that comes, or digital overload that comes from different sources.
So let me ask you this. I'm a married woman, you're a married woman, and as much as we are happily married, I would like to assume, do you think women, the way we are practicing equal footing in the society today, do you think women need marriage as much as we did before?
So the answer to this is a yes and a no. I'll tell you why. Yes, they do need marriage, but no, they don't need it in the way that they needed it before, right? Historically, women would get married for a sense of security, whether that security was emotional, economic, familial, whatever, one of those things.
Or I think they got married just to have kids and basically have the next generation.
Yeah, so familial
provide for-
security.
yeah, to
So
provide.
either family or economic or social. Now that has really changed, right? Because as women are becoming more independent, they are becoming, like you say, they have an equal footing. their need for marriage is not coming from a dependency, but
Financially
it's not coming from any dependency, but it's coming from a realization or a need for partnership. So partnership is driving the reason why they need. So it could be
Absolutely.
companionship, partnership, somebody for shared goals, also for mutual growth in the process. And that is beautiful, because before this, women would get married out of, I won't say out of force, but out of no choice. Need.
It was
right?
need of the hour. The daughter had to go get married, have a family for them, take things forward.
And the need is still there, but now the need is that of companionship. It's very self-driven. It's a need to partner with somebody to share life together, which is why it's nice. So it's more like a equalist approach to marriage, right?
Yeah.
Where two partners are coming into the marriage with the goal to equally contribute financially, emotionally, socially, practically towards making the relationship work, and that helps in, like I said, mutual growth. Both are focused towards
Absolutely.
their own and their partner's growth, and it helps towards having shared goals, and most importantly, companionship. So I feel like the companionship is becoming the root of why women want to marry now, and that's the change.
I think no matter how much we argue about equal footing or unequal footing, I think marriage itself is what? It's a relationship you need for companionship, for emotional growth, for mental growth as well.
Yeah.
And I think that reason will never die out.
Yeah.
Even though people may argue otherwise, I think nowadays a lot of people have this concept of, why do I need to get married? I have the money, I have this, I have a career, I have XYZ. But in the end, we don't get married for reasons to provide, or to provide for them, or have be provided for. So what are some of the common misconceptions about modern relationships that you encounter in your practice?
Okay, this may sound a bit funny, but the most common misconception is that love is all you need. Don't get me wrong.
I know it's very Bollywood, right?
No, I do believe that love is foundational to a relationship, and it's absolutely essential, but it's not all you need, right?
It can't be the only ingredient.
So a relationship requires effort, it requires work, it requires commitment, it requires communication. There are so many other things.
Respect.
And if you think that, because love is all, then that's number one misconception. Love is not all you need. There's a lot of other things that you need. Another common misconception I see amongst young couples is that a good relationship is supposed to be conflict free. And I don't understand that, right? Because two people in a marriage or even in a relationship are going
even in friendship, any relationship.
Yeah, exactly. They
tend to disagree.
So conflicts are inevitable. Having a conflict is not a problem. How you manage that conflict is what becomes the problem.
Correct.
So good relationships are not supposed to be conflict free. They will have conflicts.
I think even the point that you made, about love is the only ingredient. It's like you said, it's funny, but in the end I feel like it's not anybody's fault that they think, especially the younger generation now, because everywhere in the world that's what they see. Social media, magazines, movies, TV shows, anywhere you see, it's sold like that. The concept of love or the concept of a relationship is glorified to the fact that all you need is love. He needs to be starry-eyed for you, you need to be starry-eyed for him, and that's all it's going to take to have a happy relationship. So I feel awareness is missing. Otherwise I think people are quick to learn. And especially I feel the younger generation is very fast at learning and picking up the undertones or things you're not seeing. So I think it's missing in the information.
It's also that all of this media and the portrayal is kind of bringing, why I said that's the most common misconception. It brings this idea of instant gratification. Everything is available to us on our fingertips. Everything is like quick fix. So then people start thinking relationships are also like that.
Correct.
But relationships are not like that. They require work, they require commitment, they require time, they require patience. So that's why I said that love is very, very integral, but it's not all you need.
How do changing gender roles and expectations affect relationships? I know it's a very general question, but we want a professional view on this.
So, gender roles, okay, let's look at it. The current married generation is probably the only one, hopefully the last one, that has seen their parents have very conventional gender stereotypical roles, right?
Correct.
We've seen roles and responsibilities being very clearly defined between mother does this, father does this, or the man is the provider, the woman is the caregiver. And hopefully generations from here would see a switch and, like we were talking earlier, like an equalist approach. Now what happens for young couples is that a part of them has been conditioned to believe in that
Correct.
conditioning.
Is what you've seen.
Because you've seen that, right? But a part of you is also exposed to the modern lives that you have lived, and there is a bit of a confusion or a conflict that exists within
There
you.
is.
So when you bring that confusion into your relationships, that's where, like your question was, how does it affect relationships?
Yeah.
Right? That's where the issue happens. Because let's take an example, right? If a couple, both in very high demanding jobs, have hectic routines, whatnot. Now, if the routine goes like this, that the woman takes up more household responsibilities, she's taking them up because she thinks that that's what my mother did. So in spite of having a high demanding job, I ought to do this. He's letting her take it up because he thinks, oh, she does it faster, she's good at it, whatnot.
She's the better one at this job than I would ever be.
Now what ends up happening is, while the tasks are getting done, there's some kind of resentment that's building up between them.
Deep down.
Deep down.
Yeah.
That resentment, when not resolved, not spoken of, unaddressed, starts to kind of cause issues, right? Of irritation, irritability,
It's like
argument.
It's like that underlying cancer building.
So it's extremely important that couples take the effort to discuss and bring to conversation what their expectations in terms of gender roles are. How they would like to work as a couple to realign what works for their ecosystem.
Don't you think this should be discussed at the very beginning? What you're okay with and what you're not okay with? Because I feel like even now in a country like India, where we're moving forward, education, everything is happening. We're in the modern times.
Yeah.
But I feel like the male role is still pretty much how it used to be or has been. The mentality is still quite like that. So don't you think this should be discussed at the start of a relationship, any relationship?
So I agree with you 100%. Hence the emphasis on premarital counseling. I know it's getting better, but at a very, very slow pace, right?
I don't think people even know this term. Let's hold on. Premarital counseling.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I've not done it. Obviously, I don't think it existed, or it did, even if it did, I was not aware of it so many years ago.
Yeah.
But what is that?
So, you know how you would reach out for therapy once you are married, you have issues. A lot of times in an arranged marriage setup, or even in a love marriage, where couples are closer to getting married, they start to recognize some aspects that they would like to strengthen, or
Called the red flags.
not really red flags, but concerns, that yellow flags, let's say, right?
Yeah.
That they see that, okay, this could be a potential concern. I'm about to get married to this guy I've been, let's say, dating, but I see that, oh, I'm going to have compatibility issues with his family. Now, I want to bring this up. I want to talk about it.
But you're scared to.
I don't know how to. So, I reach out for premarital counseling to help me do that. Sometimes also to understand each other better, understand each other's vulnerabilities, each other's triggers. So, it is something that couples do reach out. But like you were talking about, the idea in India, I just feel it's very unfair because India is so being
Vast
in
and
Bombay.
diverse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Being in Bombay, we do see that, and not to lie, I do see clients reach out to me from other parts of India also seeking premarital counseling, but it's a very small number.
That's what I'm saying.
The exposure to that, the understanding of that you can start to work on your relationship to strengthen it and to have a strong emotional connect and bond with your partner, even in the absence of a problem, is what we are talking about.
Yeah,
right?
and I think, like you said very correctly, if the foundation is right, like you said, love is not all you need. You will need a strong foundation for anything to build.
Yeah.
And if you can have the premarital, means before you get married, before you leave your house, before you go to somebody else's house, you
You're better
take on their
prepared.
family name, their family values, their family
Yeah.
systems.
Yeah.
If you have this strong foundation between two people, I think that's all you would need. It'd be a great start if everybody could.
It's a safe start.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're going to go feeling absolutely uprooted
Yeah.
from your world into another world, and to settle into that, right? Your emotions are going to rile up. Intolerance comes in play.
Absolutely.
The emotional disturbance of being in a new. So navigating through all of this as a woman for herself, and also as a man to be able to understand and support the woman in the
Can't be
process, right? So that's a lot of these things. And I do feel like there are some, very integral steps to before you kind of set out on marriage, very integral to a relationship, right? Your respect, communication, trust. When these things are addressed to couples before they get married and they're able to openly share their thoughts, their inhibitions, and come to a common ground towards what they look out, what they want to work towards, or what they look forward to, that's what premarital counseling focuses on. So even in the absence of a problem, even in the absence of any family conflict,
Issues,
anything, right? That's how it helps.
So let's say everything is going well with the couple, and I'm not talking in terms of marriage, but just in a relationship.
Yeah.
And none of the parties feel like there's need for therapy, counseling, or any outside perspective. What do you think is a very good time or kind of like need of the hour when a couple should seek therapy?
So, when there are recurrent, there don't have to be like major issues,
Right.
but when there are recurrent patterns that kind of become part of the relationship dynamic, where let's say one partner feels like they're not able to express themselves freely, or they don't feel understood, or there is something that they are going through as part of life, even as a couple are going through together, let's say a family driven conflict or some situation, it's a good idea to reach out for therapy, even to kind of strengthen the bond, strengthen the communication, understand yourself and understand your partner's patterns a bit better. That's also okay. People generally think that one goes to therapy when there is crisis.
Yeah, that's generally the perception.
That's
of
generally
therapy.
the perception, right? Whether individual or as a couple. So the general perception is if there is a crisis, I will then go for therapy. But the signs of, some of the undercurrent issues start to show up much before a crisis occurs. So the way I see it, it's much easier to fill a tiny crack, in the foundation than to rebuild the whole
The entire,
base
yeah,
together,
that's
all together.
true.
So that's how I see it.
Do you think there are any early signs to watch out for? Can you give us 2 or 3 early short signs that you see in a relationship that would require therapy, which later would become like the big cracks in a relationship?
So I think not being able to be honest with your partner comes down to expression, sharing, right? There could be multitude of reasons for it. It could be because you're worried about their reaction,
How they would
feel. You're not able to share what you're actually feeling. You're all feeling like you're on eggshells. So all of these things is one absolute because there could be a lot of underlying factors, unresolved factors that even you're not fully aware of,
100%.
whether for yourself or for your partner. So that's one. Recurrent patterns of conflict. So let's say,
You disagree on something over and over again.
over and over again. It's not getting resolved. We're
Yeah.
coming back to that again and again. Communication breakdowns also, like how if you see that a argument kind of escalates into a fight very fast and then it's unresolved, then again, that happens. So communication breakdowns is again a fairly early sign that starts to happen, and then
That
you
couple
kind
would
of
need,
brush it
yeah.
under the carpet and you're like, okay, it's fine, it was just once in a month, once in a week, and it becomes more frequent. Now what happens is that frequency causes a bit of distance between the partners, right?
100%.
And that distance, then you start to feel like it's too much. Crisis then occurs where you feel like you're not able to connect with them at all. So instead of reaching that point, you much rather reach out for help, whether for yourself or as a couple, when you start to see the communication breakdowns.
So what do you think are the most common issues that couples bring to therapy in your practice?
So there are different issues with which couples, when there is a problem, right? When there is an issue, when they reach out, it could be infidelity, it could be not necessarily cheating, but trust-related issues. When I say trust, I don't only mean like with another man or a woman. Trust also goes down to like consistency of behavior, compatibility issues. But I feel like at the heart of it all is, our communication barriers. Because either there is a communication problem or there's the lack of it. So these I feel like are very, very common factors. But, when we start working with couple, they may enter therapy with thinking that specific issue is a problem. But when you start digging a bit deeper, you realize that there are other unresolved emotions or unaddressed conflicts from the past.
And those probably are the real issues.
And those are the underlying
Yeah.
issues which are kind of instigating me to react to something in the here and now. So that happens. So a lot of couples have family related issues where with the in-laws, with friends, with other social elements kind of feeling like that's interfering with into the marriage. That's very common. It's also very common that people go through their own struggles and they're not able to process it or not able to deal with it. So if then somebody's going through anxiety themselves, they're going through their own insecurities, they tend to kind of
Project it on the
that
partner.
onto the partner, and they are so not aware of their own patterns that they don't know how to help themselves, let alone expecting the partner to help them. So these are some very common issues that kind of people come into therapy with. However, I feel like being able to express and communicate, or the lack of it, is where the main issue lies, because we are not trained to be married.
We're not.
We're not trained. We have no skills to navigate through this. We may go to college and study and get skills for a career.
Yeah, we're not actually provided with any skills for a marriage or a relationship.
And that's what therapy really focuses on, right? Empowering or getting each partner to be equipped with skills to manage their own emotions, to understand that of their partner. So different issues may bring you to therapy, and they may be the cited issues, right? Anxiety, insecurity, jealousy, infidelity, trust related issues, family conflict. But at underlying that could be a lot of personal as well as interpersonal conflict that needs to be addressed.
So can you walk us through a typical couple therapy session? What does it look like?
So I prefer, Ashna, to work with individual partners separately, at least initially to begin with. Why? Because while people think that couple therapy means we go into therapy together, yes, that's true, but I prefer to start independently, because each partner then gets a safe space to share, right, and to be able to express themselves, their observations, without the judgment of
The partner
the
listening.
partner, without worrying about offending them, without feeling like they have to inhibit what they can share or not share. And once we kind of align on individual goals, then we decide to have like joint sessions or couple sessions, which largely focus on resolving issues, deciding on common goals, helping them with exercise or tools that they can work on together. So how this helps is that, like, if I have a couple who comes in, right, they insist that no, we want to talk together only, because maybe they have trust issues with therapy. Very common, right? Because
People have trust issues with
yes,
therapy?
they don't believe that it can help them, right? And that's fine. I understand. You've never been there before, so you worry. You feel like, how is this third person who I don't know, doesn't know me, is going to be able to help resolve this? And this
Or dissect the situation. But I
Yeah.
think, like you said, when couples come into therapy, they don't trust therapy. Let's say if that's an issue or that's a common phenomena. I just feel that if you've gone into therapy for a start, you obviously have things that you want to talk about.
Yeah.
It'd be so hard to talk in front of your partner who the problem is with. For
Yeah.
instance, or even if it's a family member, or even if it's a friend. Let's say I have a problem with a friend of my husband,
Yeah.
and I feel like that's affecting our relationship. I mean, maybe it doesn't require therapy, but at some point we both have thought, let's go for a
Yeah.
session.
Yeah.
But it would be so hard for me to address that because it'll become like a
in
blame
presence.
game.
Yes. So creating that emotional safety for each partner to feel like they are understood, right? I've worked with a couple who literally insisted on having joint sessions, and it took us so long for me to convince the man to let the wife talk alone, because it was very like, I know everything she has to say. She can say anything she wants in my presence, but that's not entirely true, right? Because there are possibly some inhibitions, and once
that's
you
human.
that's human. And after a lot of convincing and understanding, did he realize that some part of this process is her own, right? It's not even, people see therapy as if it's like a attack or like a blame game, right? As if I leave the room, my partner is going to
Talk about
talk
me,
about
yeah,
me
yeah,
to this
talk
third
about me, yeah.
person. And so this is not like a blaming process. It's not a fault finding process. It's a process for growth. It's a process for learning skills to manage your emotions, as a result of which being able to be a better version of yourself in the relationship.
Yeah, I think if what I have realized from therapy is, the minute what you said is so right. If you fix, or if you work on your emotions, it fixes 90% of things around you.
Yeah, that's true. In fact, I've had situations where one partner comes into therapy saying my partner's unwilling, right? And I'm just here because I want to work on the marriage or I want to work on the relationship. They don't want to come in. 2 sessions, 3 sessions, 4 sessions into work with that person, they actually come back to say, are you talking to my spouse, right?
And because things have suddenly changed.
Because some things are changing and some things are radically changing. And of course, I'm not talking to your spouse. But what is happening is that you are changing, your perspective is changing, your work on your emotions is changing. So, A, your partner's mirroring that. B, you are going into the relationship as a better version of you.
Correct.
So a lot changes there. And in those situations, and the partner eventually wants to come around, right? Because they're like, oh, my wife's evolving or my husband's evolving and I want to be part of this process and evolve together. So yeah, that also happens.
Yeah, I think, in simple terms, how I see it, I'm not a professional, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. But it's like X plus Y equals to Z. So X is one partner, Y is one partner, Z is the relationship.
Yeah.
And if I, X, seek help and change, then I could be Y plus Y equals Z. The relationship automatically changes because that one ingredient, out of the two ingredients, one is completely changed or one is looking to change. It can change a lot of things. I'm not saying it can change the entire relationship.
I agree.
But the dynamics change. Yeah,
yes,
the dynamics
a part of
change.
it definitely. Some momentum picks up. There are a lot of things that require both partners to work, right?
Absolutely.
But some momentum to that change picks up, and that's a good start point.
Could be an inspiration for the other partner.
Yeah, it's a great start point. So if you feel like you are struggling with something in your relationship and you feel like your partner is not ready for it, XYZ reasons, right? You don't have to hold on to reaching out for help, or you don't have to worry that there's no point, this is a failed cause. You can start working on your emotions.
Correct.
And that might help you move forward. Maybe it might also help your relationship move forward, and maybe it might bring your partner into therapy. But nonetheless, work on yourself, and that's a good start.
So are you saying that individual growth plays an integral role in the success of couple therapy?
Absolutely. Ashna, look at it like this. If I take a motorbike to go from point A to point B, can it go on one wheel?
No.
It can, possibly, but it won't be effective.
Correct.
So the way I see it is that those two wheels are symbolic of the two partners in the relationship. Each wheel has to do its own part, right? And that's what's getting the vehicle or the relationship to move forward smoothly. So that's the impact I see of individual growth, right? When I'm coming for couple therapy also, I have to be mentally prepared that this is going to require individual work too. And if I'm coming alone, then even if I have the goal of improving my relationship, I'm working on myself. So individual growth is like that each partner is working on themselves, and that sync gets the relationship to move forward smoothly. Okay, let me take you through what would be a very common situation, right? Ashna, most couples in their late 30s, early 40s, I see this a lot. Of course, confidentiality and many other factors. So I'm going to share like snippets of what are common patterns, of course. But career peak in that age, between 30s and early 40s, parenting responsibilities come up. And what we see of couples is that there's a lot of distance that comes up. So a couple I was working with, recently, when they came into therapy, there was years of unspoken emotional distance, right? And when you kind of dived into it to say, why do you feel like that? What brings you into therapy? It kind of dated itself back to when we had a child, or sometimes even before we had a child. Like a child is 5, 6, 7, and we're talking about 7 to 8 years of, so to say, being in a functional marriage, but feeling emotionally distant from your partner.
Yeah.
To the world, it looks like an optimal marriage, you are a functional family, you're doing life together, festivals together, whatnot. But internally, there is a distance because both partners are either too occupied and in that case, too consumed with their high demanding jobs, too consumed with other responsibilities. You want to match up with the social, expectations.
Yeah.
So what ends up happening is that there's a bit of a disconnect where you feel not understood, you feel not looked out for by your partner. And this is a common pattern because they are not able to pin to, hey, this is a problem. It's not like my partner's cheated on me. It's not like, but there is still a disconnect. The distance that has kind of been caused over the years.
I think I've seen this with a few friends of mine as well, where it's not cheating. It's not that the partners are unfaithful. It's not like there's some major issues, but yet you see the strain. You see the distance.
Yeah. And that strain, unfortunately, is making it much easier for you to find interest outside of your marriage, right? Because you are still exposed to people you meet, engaging conversations you have. There is no baggage of other things that we have gone through. So that's how affairs or relationships kind of build outside of marriage. I don't even want to call it affairs because sometimes it could just be an emotional connect that you kind of develop with somebody outside of your marriage.
Because you're not doing it at home.
Because you're not doing it at home. That's why I started, when I say this fast-paced, world, the intention to kind of keep coming back to making an effort with my partner. Now, with this particular couple, we had to do a lot of work because there were so many assumptions that were built on the way. Oh, maybe he's not finding me attractive. Maybe she's lost respect for me. Maybe, the child has taken priority.
That's common.
That's his or her world only revolves around work. So all of these assumptions which are not being checked in, which are not being communicated, which are not being spoken about, are kind of increasing the gap, right? Now imagine if every issue like that causes an emotional distance between us. Now we're really far away. And I start to feel like this is a really emotionally distant person. To be able to walk this distance and cross over is too much work.
Correct.
And that's where I think that, okay, now maybe we should consider going our own ways. We're not able to explain to family why we want to go our own ways because it looks like a absolutely functional relationship. And work in therapy then involves resetting of expectations, realigning, going back to what brought us together in the
Also,
first
that will
place.
be years of correcting thought processes, right? And we've evolved as people.
Yeah.
When we get into a relationship, it doesn't have to be marriage, any relationship. You could be a certain age,
Yeah.
and then you've gone through years, and a child has come in, or no children, or whatever. Many years have gone by. You've evolved as people. Two individuals also have evolved. From A has gone to A plus plus.
You've
and B
grown,
has gone, You've grown. Now, to go and seek therapy after so many years also would require that much work. So like you rightly said, start when you see the small signs. Start when you see the small problems. Start when you feel like you're not able to communicate the small things even.
And emotional disconnectedness is something that people just take really lightly, right? You're not supposed to be emotionally disconnected with your partner. True. There is a reason why you're on this journey of, shared life, companionship, marriage, or just like even if you're living in together. So if you feel like you're feeling emotionally disconnected with your partner, work on it. Work on it interpersonally, bring it up in conversations, address it. And if you're not able to work on it, then reach out for help. So this is a common factor that I see, the emotional disconnectedness, where they feel like I can't talk to my partner. I can't say this to her or him.
Yeah.
And you would think that's odd, right? Because the foundation of a strong relationship is on friendship. And in a friendship, you should be able to say what you feel to the partner. Of course, with respect, of course, with, respectful boundaries. But that I see is a common pattern with a lot of couples.
So let's say one has tried everything and nothing works. Let's say, for instance.
Yeah.
And they're heading towards divorce. In your experience, what are the most common factors that lead couples to divorce?
So, in my experience, I could be wrong, but I really feel like there's never usually one major issue that leads to a divorce, right? It's usually
combination.
Over time, the issues that have kind of brewed over time, and then something happens and it becomes the apparent trigger. But it's like if the relationship sort of eroding over time, and there's something that then happens. So usually there's not one major issue. It's like a undercurrent of many things that have caused for one to reach that point. But of course, infidelity, mistrust in general, in the availability.
So what do you think are the common factors that lead couples to divorce?
So it's really like related to infidelity, cheating, emotional, physical abuse, There are family related conflicts that come up. So reasons could be multiple. But when you said that if a couple's tried everything, what we usually recommend is for a couple to also speak to a neutral third person professional to get perspective of whether divorce is the right direction for them. Because personally in that situation you don't have the objectivity to understand whether reconciliation is possible or not, to understand what are the underlying issues that one could work on to make the relationship work, right?
Yeah.
So these are the core common factors that we see that leads people to divorce. Honestly, one other thing that I also see is like if I may call it like an emotional checkout, right? There are times when for innumerable reasons partners reach a point where they don't have the intent to work towards the relationship. Undercurrent issues over the years, a lot of things that have brewed but have not been addressed. So all those unaddressed things kind of get them to emotionally check out.
And then they find emotional comfort somewhere else, because we are human beings. We all need emotional connection.
Correct.
So the only time when you found, it's like what I have observed as a layman, what I have observed is when you find emotional comfort somewhere else, you'll stop seeking it in your marriage or in your relationship or with your friends or whoever, because you find that comfort somewhere else. As human beings, we all need it. So if I'm not, let's say you're my partner, if I'm not able to connect with you, it's because probably I found connection somewhere else. I'm tired of dealing with the issues, or I don't want to address those issues. Like you said, undercurrent has been going on for so long.
Yeah.
But now I have finally found this other person who is able to talk to me, connect with me, understand me, and I feel like who's going to go and do the work. Rather just check out, could be the reason like rather just check out the easier route is seek it somewhere else.
Yeah, it's the balance, I feel, because I can't be fully emotionally dependent on my partner, right? You're right. As humans, we have social needs, we have emotional needs. I may have the need to watch a movie, go for coffee, talk about politics, sports, everything. I can't expect everything to come from one partner.
One person, yeah.
But here, what we are talking about, the emotional checking out, happens when I feel like recurrently over the years, I have not been able to bond or connect with this person. So, yes, I will have friendships outside of my marriage, and I will have emotional bonding also with them, but that's not a replacement for what I have in my romantic primary relationship.
Yeah.
There has to be a balance between both. When I stop making the efforts to make my relationship work, that's that emotional checkout I'm talking about, right? When I don't make the efforts. I do have a work colleague I'm close to. I do have a cousin or a friend or whoever I'm really connected to. But I start to place them as replacement for this. Then when I start to say I don't need anything that comes from the relationship, or I'm not going to put the efforts towards it, it becomes very difficult to then walk the path and work on the relationship dynamics when one partner doesn't want to work on it. So that's another cause for divorce, where there's one person who feels like they want to work on it, but the other person's emotionally checked out.
Yeah, it's like a lopsided relationship then.
Yeah.
So how can couples determine if divorce is the right option for them? What do you think determines that yes, this is the only solution that we have now for you?
So, see, as divorce is a very, very personal decision. And obviously, as a relationship therapist, when we see a couple, our first goal is to help them to work on aspects of the relationship, right? At the end of the day, it is an investment of time, emotion, over the years, not just your own, also of people around you, of that of your partner. So the first goal is to help both partners to work on aspects. There are obviously some situations where that it's very clear, right? In cases of consistent, repetitive, emotional or physical abuse. In cases of repetitive cheating, infidelity, where that there is a pattern to this, there is no remorse, there is no realization, or so that's another one. And when the intent to want to work on the marriage is mutually lost between both partners, where it starts to kind of there's a hostility that comes in between the partners, right? So that's a clear sign that I don't think that two people need to live together in a marriage with hostile emotions towards each other, because that's having an impact on your individual mental health also. So in that case, when any of these other factors are true and there's an unwillingness to work on the relationship, then divorce becomes the inevitable choice.
So let's say a couple gets divorced, they would still need therapy, they would still need counseling, they would still need a psychologist to help them, navigate life.
Yeah.
How do you think how do you help couples navigate the emotional challenges of divorce?
Ashna, I see a lot of people who come in to therapy before taking the decision for divorce. And I understand why, right? It's a very difficult decision. Uh, Socially, there is a conditioning of divorce equals failure of marriage. And honestly, that's not how I see it as a profession. But I understand if an individual in that situation is seeing it as that, right? They're worried about uncertainty of future. They're worried about taking a life decision. Sometimes they haven't even had an active role in deciding on the marriage, and now they're deciding on moving out of the marriage. The impact of that would be on their life. There
Even
is
financial responsibility.
maybe financial responsibility, the loneliness that comes along with it. So a lot of people do reach out for help in terms of clarity towards that decision. However, once a decision is made for multiple reasons, then the process moves towards helping them work through their emotions, right? Because there are emotions of anger, guilt, just remorse, also grief.
It can even lead to, I think, a lot of self-doubt, right? Because we're humans. And like you said, marriage equals failure. Divorce equals failure. So they might see it as I failed, I was not good enough, I was not XYZ. So the self-doubt, I'm sure, is a big factor.
It takes a big toll on their sense of self-esteem.
Yeah.
Because they feel like they either didn't take the right decision at that point, or they start second guessing many other decisions that they're taking in their lives. So to help them work through that, and I really encourage my clients to see divorce then as a transition. It is a transition phase. Yes, you're transitioning from being married to now not being married. There's a lot that goes on through that process. Keep aside the legalities, just emotionally there's a lot that goes on. And to help them understand the scope for growth, the scope for personal development. Also to help them process their own emotions and look forward. Sometimes the look forward could be look forward to, let's say, a career phase they're in, life phase that they're in. If they are parents, they're looking forward to a common interest or common well-being of the child. Different in each case, but
or maybe
helping
they
them.
didn't even have an individual identity to finally have one.
Yes.
I think a lot of people lose that in a
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah.
And divorce could really teach you to have your own identity.
Yeah, which is why I said it's a transition, it's a process of personal growth. You have to find ways in which you grow from it. Every relationship, every encounter is helping me learn better about myself and my needs, and I've ought to focus on that when the decision towards a divorce is already taken. People feel like cheating happens only when there is a void, right? There was something's missing in my marriage, so I'm outside. But I've seen clients who, like, let's say, have cheated on their partners and are able to come and say that, no, I'm actually very happy in my marriage. And then they want, to work with the therapist.
Or they're being greedy.
No, they want to work with the therapist in discovering why that happened, right? And I see sometimes it is curiosity, sometimes it is intrigue, where there may have been something that is an underlying suppressed need or emotion from early years, pre-marriage days, and you feel like you find something. And it starts off with what one may call like an innocent friendship, but you start to get more and more and more invested. Self-awareness, right? That this is something that I'm getting drawn towards, and it could lead to,
Me cheating or whatever, yeah.
And before they know it, they're already in that. So a lot of times, people come in recognizing that they're actually happily married, but may have fell into this attraction or this interest or curiosity with somebody outside of their marriage, and they want to work towards resolving those emotions for themselves.
Yeah, because I think the myth is if your partner doesn't look good enough or your partner hasn't provided financially enough is the major reason. But like you're saying, it's not.
It may not always be, and surprisingly, I would say, maybe you're emotionally disconnected, right? Surprisingly, there are times when both partners feel like they have been emotionally connected, yet you've been interested in somebody else, right? And you may justify it to say that, oh no, I'm not physically involved with this person, but I am still emotionally seeking something out of it. So I'm not physically cheating. But what is it that you're not able to kind of fulfill in your marriage?
In your
Yeah, and it's
relationship.
got nothing to do with your partner providing or not providing something, right? Uh, Looks, security, financial, emotional, social. It's something that's your own void.
Yeah.
That you're not even aware of.
You're fulfilling from somewhere else.
You're just fulfilling
Yeah.
it from somewhere else, and you need to work towards that awareness.
Correct.
So that you don't, it's so conflicting, right? One may say that you've cheated on your partner's the victim. Yes, I agree. But if you recognize that you're going through these conflicting emotions, it's so confusing for the person who's cheated also to say, why am I
Drawn to this.
drawn to this? I love,
Yeah.
and that's another common thing. I have a lot of people say, oh, I cheated on my partner, but I do genuinely love the
My
person.
partner, yeah.
I love the partner and I want to work on this relationship. Now that conflict, then why did I fall for this? What drew me? What is, is a lot of layers of emotions that they need help to process, which a friend, a parent, they're not able to help you with that.
No, I think in the end, a therapist, a counselor, a psychologist, a professional, I think is so much required. It's just required. It's the need of the hour, because end of the day, anybody who's connected to you in any way, a parent, a sibling, a friend, will be biased. And I feel you do need an unbiased opinion.
They will be biased. They have the intention to help you, right? But they don't have the tools to.
Yeah, they don't have the skill set.
They don't have the skill set. So while they will empathize with you, with the bias of course, but they are not able to tell you what to do to change the situation. They're always going to be like, oh, my poor daughter, my poor son.
Yeah.
And it kind of gets, the solution gets dissolved in that. You're still staying with the problem.
I see a lot of divorces happening nowadays, not only in major cities but even in small towns. It's not as big a taboo as it used to be. People are accepting it far more in today's world than they did before. So, what advice would you give to parents for co-parenting after divorce?
What does divorce do to a couple? It converts them from being romantic partners to having to be now collaborative parents. Two very different roles, right?
Yeah.
That transition is what is important to navigate through. One part is to deal with your own emotions of grief, of hurt, of everything that you're going through. And as parents, the other pressure or the other responsibility is to make it as smooth a ride for your child, for them to not feel very insecure, uncertain about their future, upheavaled from the change in living
Yeah.
circumstances, etc. So it's very important to remember that being on the same page, having common understanding of what is in the best interest of the child's well-being, then becomes top priority. And you won't believe it, couples who have a lot of other issues, communication barriers and lots of things before they got divorced, sometimes are actually able to work on those things and improve them and have healthy communication, because now they are keeping the child and the child's well-being in the center of their dynamic. So having a very consistent, very secure routine for the child where everything is very predictable. There's no scope left for uncertainties. There are no gray areas about what, when, where. So the child falls into that routine smoothly and equally playing a part, right? By equally, I don't mean it has to be like a 50-50 where you're doing things in a certain way, but both parents in their own ways are invested towards the child's growth and upbringing so that the child feels secure. So like I said, if you work systematically towards it, co-parenting can actually be smoother than your marriage was after divorce.
How do you help couples balance individuality and togetherness in a relationship?
It comes from the concept of dependency, right? Couples often believe that once I'm married to somebody or once I'm with somebody, this person is my go-to. And that becomes an unhealthy pattern. I can't depend on one person to be everything for me. And the moment I do that, it not only leaves no space in the relationship, but it also becomes very overwhelming for one or both partners.
Yeah, I think for the other partner also.
Exactly. So individuality coming more from having life outside of your marriage or outside of your relationship life does not mean that I'm leading a parallel life, beyond
Yeah.
my, but
But
to
have-
have friends,
yeah,
to have a social
interests.
connect, to have interests, to have hobbies, and to take time out for that. You don't have to feel guilty, or you don't have to feel like you're being unfair to your relationship because you want to, let's say, pursue a hobby that your partner's not interested in, or you want to do something that your partner's not able to make time for, because that is filling your cup in a way. The more you feel full, you're going to go into your relationship as that version of you.
Absolutely.
So that balance between, we really encourage our clients to have that balance between taking time out towards planning things with your partner, but also making the effort to do things independently that make you feel like yourself. You're not just an extension of your relationship, but you should not feel bad or guilty or awkward about doing that, or asking for that in the relationship dynamic.
Yeah, I think if you have a lot going on for yourself, you'll have things to talk about. You'll have positive
Yeah.
material to do things together.
Yeah.
But if you have nothing going on besides the relationship, then too much focus on something also ruins it. So I think what you're saying is absolutely correct. Have your individual life.
And everybody can't be everything, right, for you. So let's say if you're interested in talking about sports and I'm not, now if you're going to think that I'm interested, she's supposed to fulfill all my needs because she's my go-to person, you're dissatisfied because I'm not able to do that. I'm feeling the pressure because I don't want to talk about something I'm not interested in. It's so important for you to fulfill that need, right? To have a friend with whom you can go watch that game, or to do something, because I'm not able to provide that for you. And for me to feel off pressure to say, I don't have to do this, everything, but there's something we will connect on, right?
Correct.
So that's the balance between maintaining my individuality, doing things that I enjoy and I find interest in, and connecting with my partner on things that bond us together.
So since we spoke about divorce and we've spoken about healthy relationships and unhealthy relationships, I think there's something that I would like to discuss, before we close this episode, is forgiveness. When we were kids, it was a very common thing we used to hear, forgive and forget. So what is your take on forgiveness, and how do you think it actually changes relationships?
So I'm glad you asked this, because forgiveness is an integral part of any relationship, more so a romantic relationship. Uh, we often think that when we forgive somebody, we're giving something to the other person, like you're doing them a favor.
Yeah.
Right? That, oh, fine, I'll forgive you like that.
Yeah.
But when you're not letting go of something, and when you're holding on to something within your system, it's very toxic, or it's very unhealthy for you. Which is why there's enough research out there that talks about how holding on to a lot of grudge and a lot of suppressed emotion leads to some very serious health concerns.
Yeah.
So forgiveness is something that I often find myself working on, bringing it up in sessions, bringing it up, helping clients identify what are possible things that they may be holding on to, and expressing it, addressing it is extremely important. I'm not saying forget about something without resolving it, brush it under the carpet. If you feel like there's been something that has bothered you, bring it up, talk about it, communicate it with your partner, either interpersonally by yourself or take the help of somebody who you can trust professionally. But to not address it and to hold on to it and to bicker about it and to
Be bitter about it.
and have that distance that happens between you and your partner is not helping the relationship. So
Also,
letting go, very important to kind of let go of things that have bothered you. And to be honest, we do that in some other relationships, right? We do that with our parents. We have an unconditionality with them where we say, oh, I know you're like this, I know you've done this, I know this is part of our past, but I let it go because I want to look forward. And that's what's important to bring into your relationships also, the need, the desire to look forward and to mutually grow towards something that's putting past hurt and past emotions behind.
Do you think it's true that if we don't forget, then we haven't really forgiven?
No, actually not, because there will be episodes or life incidents that will happen that sometimes leave like a traumatic mark in your mind. Or
No, not like the big things, like the small things, like small incidents. Let's say, for example, I'm supposed to meet a friend at 5 p.m. somewhere, and she comes at 7:30. Right now, I'm going to be mad. I'm going to be angry. You wasted my time. You made me wait XYZ. I forgive her, but then
if I bring it up again, I
It
haven't
means-
forgiven.
That's what I'm saying. So if you haven't forgotten about it,
Yes.
then you haven't really forgiven.
So for the smaller things, yes, right? If I keep bringing it up again and again, I can't tell my partner that, oh, don't do this again. You did this last month also. Don't
So
do
that's
this
not
again.
forgiving
I
then.
haven't forgiven,
Yeah.
right? Because it's lingering on in my
Correct.
mind,
It's there.
and it's there, and it keeps coming up. So if I have to completely let go of it, then if it's coming up again and again, that means I haven't addressed it and resolved it. Then I need to sit down with them and say, you did this last month. What can we do for it to not happen again? Right? And then I'm kind of processing the whole thing and not feeling or not bringing it up again and again. So yes, forgetting then is part of forgiving. But sometimes there will be some incidents, like bigger life events and things like that I haven't fully forgotten.
No, that may be one or two in your life
Yeah.
that are hard to forget. They won't completely be erased from your memory. But I think
But they
if
don't
you're-
resurface often also if you
Correct.
have really forgiven.
Correct. If you've forgiven, they won't
Yeah.
come up in your active memory, but they're there. You remember that this has happened because it was life changing or traumatic or
Yes.
whatever.
Yes.
But I think in your general life, in your general small petty issues, I think
Yeah.
if you haven't forgotten, then I don't think you've really forgiven.
And it's important to process these things and let go of it for your own benefit.
I think most of it is for your own benefit.
Yes, absolutely. Because that's my responsibility towards my
Myself,
well-being.
yeah.
My well-being, right? It's like saying, I'll give you an analogy, maybe it'll help you understand this better, right? If I say I want to hurt you, but I'm holding on to this ball of fire that I'm going to throw at you. That ball of fire is burning me first.
Correct.
I throw at you, whether you duck, it falls, you put water, whatever happens to you, that's secondary. I definitely got burned.
Yeah, your hands are burnt.
So that's what I think. When I hold on to something, right, and I go like, I'm holding on to this, I'm definitely getting burnt emotionally, whatever way you may say that. How it affects you is secondary. So if I want to
Or may not affect.
may not affect you. So if I want to not burn myself, I need to start learning to let go. Yes, don't, like I said earlier, don't leave it unresolved. Don't leave it unaddressed. Talk about it, address it, resolve it. But don't keep holding on to it.
I think that's a great takeaway. Don't forgive, firstly, as a favor.
Yeah.
Secondly, forgive for your well being as priority.
Yes.
And third, I think forgiving is the only way to move forward.
Yeah, because there's so much more that life holds. And there's so much more potential that your relationship can hold if you choose to put something behind and look ahead, right? And if you
Correct.
choose to have that solution focused, looking forward mindset, there's so much more to life.
Thank you so much, Rashi, today for this insightful conversation. We've had a great time having you here.
Thank you. I've had an absolute pleasure. I hope that the information that we have shared and our conversation really inspires people to look within and build more awareness and for themselves and for their relationships. And I hope it helps them to lead more fulfilling relationships in their own lives.
Thank you. This has been Therapy Diaries. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.